it is portrayed as nothing more than just another form of socially responsible investing, sort of the Muslim equivalent of Jewish, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, Catholic, ethical investments. The idea is that it simply won't involve interest transfers or payments. Of course, there's no such thing as investment without some kind of return on investment that takes into account the time value of money and the problem of risk. So, in fact, it isn't about no interest. It's simply a ruse that is used to justify having a separate kind of program. Of course, it also involves no investment in pork or gambling or tobacco or alcohol. But in the end, all of that is to be determined by Sharia advisors who are employed by the major banks and investment houses for the purposes of determining what transactions would be Sharia compliant and what would not. Do I need to tell you the kind of people that these Sharia advisors are? Well, quite reasonably, you know that they embrace Sharia. In fact, they are in many cases regarded as the world's preeminent authorities and scholars and arbiters of Sharia. They are, in short, the political commissars of the Islamofascist ideology. They are the people who are determining what can be done and what can't be done, and with few, if any, exceptions, they bear the hallmarks of the Muslim Brotherhood, if not the Wahhabis or Deobandis or Salafis, in other words, virulently in favor of jihad. Some have even written in English that it is explicitly the obligation of faithful Muslims to practice it, the violent form, in countries like the United States. These are people who, under Sharia compliant finance, we are putting at seats of power and influence in our capital markets. As a product, as Sarah knows, of the Cold War, I can tell you this is roughly as, not just absurd, but as insane as putting KGB operatives in a similar position to exercise control over the capital and credit flows of the United States during the height of the Cold War. It's unthinkable that we would have done that, and yet that is precisely what we are doing now under the rubric of Sharia compliant finance. They're able to move funds in the name of tithing, zakat, or purification from the investments that they're governing into their favorite charities. And I need not tell you that their favorite charities are not the United Way or the Federation or the American Red Cross. This is really, I'm afraid, getting down to the point where if we do not appreciate the magnitude of the peril, this form of soft jihad, and what it is enabling. Just to give you one example, in addition to pork and tobacco and so on, these Sharia advisors apparently feel that investments in Western defense is considered impure. Not defense, mind you. If it's Muslim defense in the Middle East, that's fine, but Western defense. And again, think about what that means to the protection of this country, made possible in part by the defense sector of our economy. What do we do about this? First of all, I think we have to raise the level of awareness, and I'm delighted to be able to do that here today. Second of all, we have to recognize, speaking to the topic that is, I think, the thrust of much of this panel's efforts, that institutions like Harvard University, which have an Islamic finance program in the law school, where people like Noah Feldman, who thinks Sharia is the best thing to come along in a long time, and written to that effect in the New York Times Sunday magazine a couple of months ago, are promoting at every turn Sharia compliant finance as the next big thing. It is the next big thing, by the way, right after subprime, which it bears a striking similarity to in the sense that, like subprime, it was a black box with very smart people telling you, you don't need to worry about what's in the box, it'll make lots of money, trust us. And we've seen how well that's worked out. The difference here is that while that was a scam, and this is a scam, this has as its stated purpose financial jihad, the destruction of our country. Those who are engaged in this activity, whether they know it or not, are exposing themselves to both civil and criminal liability. We have a legal memorandum which our friend Senator John Kyle has asked the SEC, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury Department, and the Justice Department to respond to, which found exactly that there are civil and criminal exposures associated with this practice. To date, we've not heard anything back from any of the four. In the meantime, I think it behooves us not only to raise the alarm, to counter the efforts such as Harvard's to promote this activity, but also to recognize that, as I said, Sharia is at its core a seditious criminal conspiracy, and it should be treated as such. When one identifies it as sedition, it is susceptible to prosecution, which of course is a government activity. And at the moment, for reasons that Shelley, among others, has noted, our government is not much interested in treating it as sedition, any more than they're interested in identifying the principal promoters of Sharia, the people who have it as their constitution and who have put tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars over 30 years into promoting Sharia worldwide, including into this country, namely the Saudis. But they must recognize it as what it is, or we risk our certain destruction. And I want to leave you with one last thought. In the section of the U.S. Code, I believe it's right underneath the section that defines sedition, there is another section that defines another crime, a crime that is called misprision of treason. And misprision of treason simply means that whether you're an official of the U.S. government or a citizen, if you know of seditious activity and you do nothing to stop it, you are yourself guilty of a felony punishable by up to 7 years in prison. I submit to you that it is time that those of us who know what is going on here, those of us who have witnessed to our horror the penetration of our government, the influence operations run against it, the steady, stealthy, creeping, call it what you will, salami-sliced insinuation of Sharia into our country by the Saudis and by others, now begin not only to call this what it is, a criminal conspiracy of a seditious purpose, but that we hold those who should be stopping it, first and foremost in our government, accountable, if necessary, by charging them with misprision of treason. Thank you very much.